slide? Great. Great. Thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. I really love coming to Israel and talking about security, because what I find in Israel is nobody's afraid to talk. And you get lots of good ideas when you talk. So it's just great to be here and have some information sharing. At Gartner, I follow security analytics, so I'm going to talk about that space. And when I think of revolution, I think about rapid evolution. So the pace of change is getting very fast, and that's coming to security. So the new thing in security is machine learning. And machines are getting so smart that, according to an article I just read on artificial intelligence, computers now are about as smart as an insect, but in less than 20 years, we'll have a computer as smart as Albert Einstein. And within a half hour of getting a computer as smart as Albert Einstein, that computer will probably invent 10 computers that are much smarter. So, you know, the possibilities become a little frightening and scary, but hopefully we'll make these computers work in our benefit for security. So this presentation is about behavior analytics, and it's intended to help this guy. Welcome to a day in the life of a security officer, and as you see, he's dying by point product. Every single breach that occurs today does generate an alert, but the alert is buried in one of these terminals. And so how can you expect this person to know which alert to look at when there's thousands of them going off on each of these point products? So hopefully with the advent of machine learning and new analytic techniques, we can help this person and make his life easier and hopefully automate much of the detection. We'll look at two key issues. The first one, who's attacking us and how are our security methods being defeated? And then we'll look at user and entity behavior analytics and how that helps secure our assets. So just a brief look at the attacks. I'm in a very good place. People in this audience understand these attacks more than I do, I'm sure. There's a whole range of attackers. Some of them are low-tech, some of them are high-tech, and they differ by their motivation. But their techniques are largely the same, even though some have much more sophisticated techniques than others. The basic modus operandi, you just get the malware in the system, use that to get into an account, escalate privileges, get the data you need. It's almost the same in terms of that modus operandi, whether you're a cyber criminal or a nation state. In fact, I was a little nervous saying that at first, but I gave this presentation to the CIA. It was just a one-way conversation, and the woman that was in charge of their internal security came up to me afterwards and said that that was really a good observation. That they find that the techniques the cyber criminals in the Eastern European countries use are similar to the kind of techniques that the nation states use. So you've got the cyber criminals trying to get money, you've got low-tech insiders like bookkeepers trying to pay fake invoices. The hacktivists have their own techniques, you know, it's basically service disruption. Then you've got the spies trying to take intellectual property, you've got the nation states that we're all concerned now about cyber war. And I heard in this country actually that you also have terrorists that are attacking your infrastructure and trying to cause disruption, but also trying to make money through the internet. So what are we going to do about all these attackers, and how are we going to start solving our problems? We need strategic technology, and I put that into three buckets. First, you want to protect your data and your software. Self-protecting data by tagging, it hasn't worked very well in the past, but we see it getting smarter so that the protection is built into the data. Same with the code, self-protecting software. There's methods like encryption and tokenization to scramble the data, and now we're seeing more sophisticated methods like polymorphism of applications that are scrambled on demand and obfuscation of code. We also see deception, and the Israeli companies are best at this because they're best at a lot of these, but especially in this category. Companies like Teammate and TrapX have developed ways to deceive the adversary when they come in, so you trip them up, and whether it's with honeypots or software-defined networking. And then finally, the area I'm going to focus on is stronger analytics. So looking at user behavior, looking at entities like machines, and reducing the signal-to-noise ratio. Now, is that a revolution? I think it's rapid evolution. Machine learning's been around for a long time in fraud detection, in credit risk, in trading, but it hasn't been in security until a year or two ago, from what I can see. Security has always been based, and maybe that's an extreme statement always, but it's, from where I sit and what I've seen, it's all been rule-based. So it's all been based on what you know. And all you know is what happened yesterday. It's very hard for us to predict the future, so we end up with thousands of rules and lots of false positives, and that's changing with behavioral analytics. We're now using machines and models, and they're getting smarter all the time. So what problems does this solve? First, it improves that fellow in front of the 10 terminals and all the alerts he has to look at. Now, instead of looking at thousands and hundreds of thousands a day, hopefully there's only going to be 10 important alerts a day that that person needs to look at. And they'll be prioritized. The second problem it solves is investigation efficiency. So now when you get an alert, you have to go talk to 10 different departments, maybe 3 different departments, but you need to go talk to all your colleagues in these different divisions and figure out why was this alert generated, what happened. With behavioral analytics, because you're bringing all the data together, now the data's together and the reasons for the alert are readily apparent in the data. So it improves productivity with alert management and investigation efficiency. And we've certainly seen this happen. And then third, you find the bad guys. You find that needle in the haystack, and hopefully you don't disrupt the business. You know, it gets me really annoyed when the media talks about, for example, in the Target breach, there was big front page stories of how the FireEye alerts went off and they were negligent because they didn't pay attention to these high priority alerts. Well, the truth is, systems generate a lot of high priority alerts today. So those fellows in the Security Operations Center probably got 1,000 high priority alerts that day. So just because one system says, look at this, doesn't mean that they're going to have time to look at it. And hopefully behavioral analytics with machine learning is going to rapidly detect and prioritize what you need to look at. So what is it, and where is the rapid evolution in this technology? It's in 2 sides, data and analytics. With data, finally we can bring together data from any type, any source, and make sense of it quickly. And that's what big data is all about. We don't have to go through these structured ETL processes. The data is now readily available for analytics. Network flow data can be translated into information instantly. That wasn't the case years ago. And the analytics has really changed. And this is new for security. So we've always been able to correlate, but we haven't baselined and profiled before. So now you can correlate information across users, IP addresses, devices, applications, and create a baseline of all these entities. So now you know what Avivah does every day, and now that you know what my peer group does every day. And now you know what this machine usually does, how this application's accessed, how this endpoint behaves. And now you can do anomaly detection against that baseline, against that profile. And that's where the rapid evolution is with those models. How does it fit into context-aware security and the framework that we've developed at Gartner for looking at security solutions? It's the layer 4 and 5 of this 7-layer stack. So the first layer is endpoint-centric. You look at everything you can around the endpoint. I mean, we hear about endpoint detection and response systems. They're pretty much layer 1, and some of them have a little layer 2, which is network-centric. Now you're looking at network behavior and trying to look for anomalies within the network. Layer 3 are specific use cases, like data loss prevention, database audit, and protection, and those are typically just looking for one type of breach. But when it comes to layer 4 and 5, now you're looking at users and entities across all these different domains and activities. So you're correlating what's happening in the endpoint protection system with what's happening in the data loss prevention system, with what's happening in database audit and protection, or you may just be looking at network flow data. Now, if you're looking at network flow data, you can be in line to the transaction and actually block it. If you're looking offline, layer 5, now you got to be based on log files or big data. You're not in line to the transaction, but it's starting to become real time. So the time from logging to analytics is being reduced to 5 seconds in some cases. But the bottom line is now we're looking across our entire enterprise, baselining, profiling, and doing anomaly detection with machines and models. So the target state is you've got these source systems. You may take it from network flow, you may take it from existing systems like I'm showing on this diagram. You enrich the transaction information coming in with context, device, location, behavior, and you build these profiles. You're constantly profiling, you're constantly analyzing, and you're constantly finding anomalies that are important through the orchestration systems on the top that bring all this data together through common alert management and incident response that can go all the way to immediate remediation. And you bring in external identity and threat intelligence as needed. So key findings in this market: user and entity behavior analytics, from where I sit, is, and the whole Gartner team agrees, we talk about this constantly, it's really transforming security management. It's much easier for enterprises now to get visibility into what's going on. They can see, they can get their arms around the information. The platforms today all require some tuning. This stuff doesn't run off the shelf, but some of the vendors are much more off the shelf than others. And they're getting more and more quick. I've talked to customers that have put these in within, literally days. They augment existing systems like SIM with advanced profiling and anomaly detection. SIM doesn't have any of this built in, although some of the SIM vendors will tell you they do, but there's still too much noise and the models aren't good enough. And most companies are using this type of technology to investigate events, but we're starting to see this put in to predict and detect bad things as they occur. So in terms of our predictions, we think today about 20% of breaches are self-detected. In the future, just in 2018, almost half will be self-detected, and a third of those will be self-detected using these technologies. So let's talk about some success stories. I talk to lots of customers all the time, and I put some case studies here. I don't name the companies that had the breaches, I name the vendors, because the companies are sensitive, but this is a case of Exabeam's customers. They're a UEBA vendor, and they were implemented at a national grocery chain just a few months ago. And that grocery chain was concerned about a breach of its point-of-sale systems. Exabeam actually detected a bad guy going through an HR employee account, got into the VPN, bypassed two-factor authentication, put some malware on that employee's account that did the bypass of the authentication, and got in and started doing reconnaissance on the point-of-sale credit card systems. And then the alert went off, and they killed the malware before it could propagate to the payment systems. Another bank put in the Exabeam system and saw the system admin was backing up 3,000 servers from his home account in the middle of the night. So that example shows you that it's going to find not malicious behavior, but sloppy behavior often on the part of the security team or the IT team. There was another vendor's customers that Comcast, and Comcast was getting 500,000 alerts a day. They put Bay Dynamics in, and they got down to 1,000 a day that were very clearly prioritized. A bank we work with also put in this software, and they'd been trying to make sense of DLP alerts for a couple of years, and they weren't getting anywhere. There was 150,000 DLP alerts a day at that bank. They put in Bay Dynamics, and they actually ended up firing 3 people within 2 weeks for leaking data. and it was very effective. And then an Israeli vendor, Analyst, they're a cloud access security broker. They applied these techniques for cloud applications. And one of their customers found a user that was accessing Office 365 was really malware coming from Tor. They also found a user accessing Google apps were hackers that had compromised user authentication. So there's plenty of success stories in security. There's also success stories with fraud. The second one's interesting. This was a big hotel booking company, and there was a process coming in from AWS, Amazon Work Services. So the hackers were coming in through the Amazon IP address, and the hotel company couldn't block them. So basically, they couldn't use traditional means to stop them. But using behavioral analytics from a company called NewData, they actually saw these low and slow distributed attacks using 5,000 compromised credentials to try to see which ones would work at this travel company. And this company, NewData, the vendor, was able to model the behavior by IP and device and the way it was moving, that even though the hacker only used one IP twice a day, and it was distributed globally, the attack, they were able to see similar behavior across this population of attacker, the attacker's botnet, because the attackers are starting to get, they're always a step ahead, or usually a step ahead. They've been slowing their attacks down and distributing them so they look like normal human beings. But with really good behavioral analytics, they were able to isolate the populations they needed to block. So the direction of the market, years ago, you had to hire a vendor to write analytics for you. Now we're seeing canned analytics off the shelf. The machines are getting smarter, and now you can bring all the data together, and as the machines get smarter, it's easier and easier to do this quickly. And I know there's a lot of Israeli vendors that are participating in this. And, vendors like FortScale, for example, they've got a good product that does this. Exabeam came out of Avivah, so some of the Israelis and the Israeli companies really understand how to do this. So I'm going to skip this in the interest of time, but bottom line, the recommendations is this stuff really does work. The models are getting smarter and smarter. You don't have to disrupt your entire infrastructure to be successful. You want to augment what you have. Companies have spent, these are recommendations for CISOs, companies have spent millions and billions of dollars on security. You don't want to just throw it away, but if you put machine learning and smart models on top of your existing infrastructure and your existing monitoring systems, you can actually salvage what you have and make your systems much smarter. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope to meet some of you later.